problem is that we're not
Blacks
telling
here in
the
this
kids
city have
are
made
starting
a
to use drugs
significant contribution.
earlier in life than they ever have. Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmy Moore, and not as promised, but we spoke about having a follow-up show or a very soon continuation of our show that we did with Herschel Dungy, who is a past human resources director here in the city of Paducah. Do you call it firing, released, removed? What terminology did the city use for you?
They said my position was being eliminated, which is highly dubious with a workforce as large as, when you get over 300, somebody's doing the human resources function, because the function goes on. But they said my position was being eliminated, so I guess I call myself laid off.
Right. Has the position been filled yet?
Well, it's my understanding that the Human Resources Department was consolidated into the Finance Department.
And in that Finance Department, an individual or individuals who have the expertise to handle it as you did?
No. I mean, I have to say that right off front. I mean, because basically you're talking about, and I use right brain, left brain, but you're talking about people that are basically accounting professionals, even CPAs. In fact, I think the person that occupies my office now is a certified public accountant. No way they have the course material, formal education or experience to do what I've done. I just didn't work in human resources for over 30 years. I taught it at the university level, and I had my own business as a consultant just prior to coming down here. So I've been doing this for a very long time.
So until that proper person is placed in a position, can't necessarily expect to get the best of services from that particular.
Well, they can always fake it till they make it. No, they're not going to.
Okay, and likewise, the case of the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah, that's a case in itself. People should realize that, it's a textbook case of another atrocity perpetrated on an employee of color. This person worked for the city for about 15, 16 years, really had no enforcement powers. The Human Rights Commission and its director really has no enforcement powers. But as an intake function, he received various complaints all over the county. And what his real prize was, and I can say this firsthand, is he diffused a lot of potentially volatile situations. I've sat in on interviews with him and a complainant, be it city or citizen or employee, and his folks were mad. And I'm talking about mad enough. And he had that knack for being able to listen and diffuse a potentially volatile situation. Of course, what happened to him first, I found this out after I was terminated. He would have been laid off with me. He was on the layoff list too. But then they didn't lay him off, but they didn't do him any favors because they reduced his salary by better than 50%, and then subsequently terminated his employment in April, I think, of this year.
Well, what's happening with folks who have those kinds of cases now? Where are they going?
That's a good question.
Who's handling this?
Well, it's my understanding, and I had a citizen come up to me not too long ago, that there's a temporary employee in there. An employee from a temporary agency, a clerical support person that's taking the pertinent data and giving them a phone number or whatever. But to say that they have the expertise of the former human rights, executive director, that's
I know you've got some points that you want to put out
Well,
there, but before you do, I got one question. for
Okay.
you. One more question. And
Sure.
you can say what you will.
Sure.
The individual who notified you of your termination recommended or suggested or recommended that you not share that with radio, television, those kinds of communications. What was the justification for his saying that?
You mean tantamount to a gag order? Yes, that was recommended. I'm glad you used that word because I believe in free speech, and I'm not to be gagged for anybody's convenience. I felt I was wronged. I mean, and if anybody approached me, which the media did, I gave them, my viewpoints.
If you're terminated, if you're being
Yeah,
removed,
sure.
then how can anyone purport to gag you from talking about it?
Well,
You don't
they-
even
they-
belong to it no more.
They tried, and what? And when I read that, we recommended you. I thought it was hilarious and ludicrous. I mean, you've decided behind closed doors to do what they did, and I'm not supposed to tell anybody about it. No, I don't think so. I'm not that type of person, as they know. But what happened to me, and I may have indicated this before, it's just a long line. I mean, one can go back about 20 years, less than 20 years ago. There were so many, and I use, I'll say two things. One, the Nile is not just a river in Egypt, and I have a reason for saying that. That coupled with the fact, and this is a biblical scripture you're probably aware of in the Old Testament, there's nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastics. Guess what? There's nothing new under the sun in terms of the atrocities perpetrated by the city of Paducah against people of color. One has to go back less than 20 years ago, where the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, that had been inundated with a number of complaints, came down and conducted an investigation. That's what precipitated their investigation, the number of complaints they had received. And this culminated, the investigation did, with the city being put under what is called a conciliation agreement. See, regulatory agencies like the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission and state regulatory agencies like the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, once they conduct an investigation many times, they will put the company, organization, or in this case city, under an agreement saying, we've conducted our investigation, you have found deficient in certain areas, as the city was at that time, and we expect changes to be made. And under this particular agreement, which I think was implemented in 1996, the city had to submit reports to the state as to hiring, any disciplinary, process against certain employees, as well as to expedite. And I had a big laugh at this. I guess the city had taken what the state deemed an excessive amount of time to fill the position of human rights director.
Right. People are fired.
People are fired.
And protests are made, reports are filed, grievances are filed, what have you, against people, and that's law.
Mm-hmm.
That's law.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, you cannot have that position again.
You mean my position?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
I
go to
guess
all
so.
the agencies that right wrongs and et cetera. Is this the case of the possibility of a right being wronged, or are you just out there?
Well, I can only pray that the wrong will be rectified, because I'll go on record as saying, yes, I believe a wrong was done. And it was not only done to me, but to two other employees of color, and almost to one other whose name was scrapped at the last minute. And I guess, a bunch of other people so it wouldn't look so bad. And I hate to call people collateral damage, but, you know, I think the biggest prize of what happened, or prey, if I could use that term, was, you know, me and the former public works director, who was Native American Indian. Right. And, you know, it's odd, you know, it's, what do you gain here? Education? Well, you know, I don't like to brag about it, but I have a fair amount. I mean, 3 master degrees, 30-some years experience. The former public works director, he had 2 masters, had, you know, a number of years experience managing the public works function for counties. I think St. Louis County, and we hired him from Florida. Oh, incidentally, he, like the human rights director, are retired veterans of the U.S. Air Force. I'm a 9-year veteran myself, 6 years active, but apparently that didn't matter. Paducah, you know, is such that they can rid themselves of people like that and then have the gall to speak of diversity. But there again, this has happened before, you know, and there's been token attempts. When I first got here, and you may have been a spectator, I think it was John and Kristen Williams, his wife, brought 2 towns of Jasper to Paducah. This was the first week I was here. Right. And I think there were 4 viewings, and, you know, and of course, after the viewings at the Maiden Alley Cinema, I think it's called,
yes.
There were various focus groups set up, but nothing happened. It's business as usual. Nothing has changed in Paducah since the before mentioned conciliation agreement of 1996. Right. And you know what, you know, you know what keeps me up at night? You know, you think of 2 towns of Jasper. One of the things that came up in the town hall setting, and I think it was Anton Reese, formerly of West Kentucky Community Technical College, he's one of the moderators. One of the people in the audience said, there are 2 towns of Paducah. And I didn't know what that meant then. I mean, week 1, this is my first week here. I know what it means now, and I say amen to what that person said, because there are 2 towns of Paducah.
Anton Reese, by the way, held this position as host of this show.
I didn't know that.
Minority Focus.
Yeah.
And left a gigantic pair of shoes.
Yeah, for a lot of us, for a lot of us.
One of the most professional people I've seen in the business.
He and I were passing with ships in the night. He left shortly after I arrived, and that's unfortunate because I could have used picking his brain, because he had been here for 14 years, I think it was.
And very knowledgeable of what
very
goes
knowledgeable
on in the city.
But he also understood the problems, and the conversations we had was wrought with the frustrations, you know, of not seeing the progress, you know, and it's been and it's frightening because an incident like what occurred in Jasper, Texas, that catapulted that small city into national prominence for dubious reasons, could happen right here in Paducah.
Perhaps it could.
Because, you know, everybody, you know, they think there are 2 towns of Paducah. There's a symbiotic relationship that exists between the races here. The polarization has widened in the 7 years that I've been here, that I've resided here, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Back in the 60s, I think, the president of Russia, Khrushchev, I think, said of America, we'll conquer you from within, without firing a shot. We'll have other ways to go about conquering you. A lot of black people that I've talked to are of the opinion that this also fits what happens in our society.
Absolutely.
In that people can't be hung anymore, can't be beat.
It's subtle.
Can't do this, but there's an underlying way.
Sure.
That some people in society are going about subjecting black people and people of color, period.
One way, Jimmy, or one method, and I may have alluded to this earlier, is marginalization.
You mentioned that.
You'll get a person of color in a position, and this is in many cases a managerial or professional position.
Right.
But those individuals that are prejudiced or racist, and there is a difference between the two, being prejudiced and being racist, because unless you have the power to affect my job, housing, education, you may not like me, but that doesn't mean you're racist. Sure. Only when you have this power to affect things directly that influence my well-being is the term racist. But you know, you have a situation where through marginalization, where people of color have found their contributions and yet achievements within the organization diminished, intentionally diminished. And then it has long effects, and the residual effect of marginalization, and I'm saying what I know because it happened to me, is that people, after a while, they look at you and, you know, you have to justify your continued existence. People say, well, he doesn't do this, or we believe he doesn't do this, or we never hear him doing this. Therefore, what is he doing? And it happened to me, you know. And that is the racism of the 21st century. And what you said is right. You know, externally, we have to deal with terrorism in the way of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. We don't know, you know, once again, where that's going to rear its ugly head and where. Sure. But internally, the greatest danger, and I didn't say it, I wish I could take credit for it. I think the renowned scholar W.E.B. Du Bois said it 80-some years ago. The problem for America is the problem of race. And people are scared to discuss it. And that, you know, is, you know, internally, that's the biggest danger that this country faces internally, because, you know, it's an internal cancer that, if not eradicated, will have far-reaching ramifications on this country's progress, because so much time is wasted on it.
So we've done all of the things that have been done to equalize things, if you will. Mm-hmm. Affirmative action. Say, no, you know, we need the most qualified person, not because you're Indian or Chinese or whatever. You know, the most qualified person. All right, here are the qualifications. Here are the qualifications that I have that far surpass anybody else's that's applying for this. Mm-hmm. That's not enough. Mm-hmm. Now what? Where do we go from here?
What's left? I mean,
what's left?
You know, one of the facades that has come about in the last couple of years, I can remember back a week before the November presidential election, I was part of they had a panel discussion out of West Kentucky Community and Technical College. And there were various representations of people of color. And one of the questions that the audience asked was, you know, do you think if Barack Obama gets elected president, would alleviate some of the problems of race in this country? To which I responded, no. When he does, you know, get elected president, it's still going to be business as usual. See, people think on both sides. You know, unfortunately, a lot of African Americans say, okay, we can relax now our vigilance because we've got one of ours in the White House. You know, we made it. No, there's a lot of work to do. Sure. And of course, his election and ascendancy to the presidency probably has, you know, sparked, you know, increased fear, you know, among white people. For sure. So both sides, and nothing's changed.
Okay, I don't want to get too far out of context here. I know that you had some particular points that you wanted to make.
Well, you know, to reiterate what I said earlier, unless people, you know, feel comfortable about talking about race, and you know, I'm not talking from a macro perspective, the whole nation. I'm talking from a micro, right here in Paducah, that we have some problems that are going to have to be dealt with, and these problems are not going to evaporate, and it's only going to get worse. We're one event from national prominence. You know, one event from having CNN, 60 Minutes, and people don't think it can happen here. You know, as I said, it's a symbiotic relationship, both sides. We've agreed not to. We can stay separate, and it's okay because it's mutually advantageous. Well, that's good, except when you have, the atrocities that continually are perpetrated, because it's almost like a boiling pot, tantamount to a boiling pot, because it exacerbates a situation that's already volatile. Right. And sooner or later, something's going to erupt.
I've often said that if someone, speaking about the president, if someone were to approach me on the street, stick a microphone in my face and say, what do you think about how the president's doing? Mm-hmm. I'd say, sorry, I can't make that call. Never done his job.
Right.
I have no idea how he goes about doing what he does. Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't think I could handle it myself. No, so I can't call how he's doing it.
Yeah.
He can't, no president can do what he wants to do, everything he wants to do. He has people telling him what to do, advising him on what's the best thing to do. And in a lot of cases, some of those things that he makes decisions on are against what he would like to do, because it's for the betterment, supposedly, of all. If I've got you advising me to do something, I'm going to go with what you tell me before I go with a sixth grade kid. You know what I'm saying? Even the sixth grade kid might have something, but who am I going to respect?
Or put credence in, yeah.
For sure.
I would respond to that question the same way if somebody asked me how, and people have, how do I think the president's doing? I have no frame of reference. Haven't done the job, would not want that job, So I usually respond pretty much the way you said.
You think white people in general felt like or feel like the president's main objective was going to be putting white people down, getting the right people up?
Oh yeah, I think there's a really consistent thought, out there, and plus, there's also a consensus of thought that, well, I'll call it shock. Here's something. Back in November 4th, election night, people of color, in general, African Americans in particular, cried, danced. I did all the above because I did not think it would ever happen in my lifetime. Now look at it from the other end of the spectrum. A lot of, white Americans were in shock because they never thought it would happen.
For sure.
Although I think it was Senator Kennedy prophesied it, 40 years ago, that this country would be ready.
I mean, it seemed as if the world, was elated about the Berlin Wall coming down.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere didn't like that.
Yeah.
They were not happy about it,
Yeah.
But the world as a whole, I think, was happy to see that happen. Just as I believe the world as a whole was happy to see a black man become president of the United States, a man of color. Wow. But there is still that faction of people that will never divest themselves of the feeling that white people are elite. Superior, and all of those other words.
We've been on these shores since 1619. Okay, it's the first ship of African slaves, about 30 in number. We beat the Mayflower over here. Okay, the Pilgrims. No other peoples, take away the Native American Indian, I'm talking about immigrants to this country, came over here in the condition that we came over here, our ancestors. And 400 years later, we're still dealing with problems, similar to what's in the news about the woman in Georgia. I mean, and it's, one wonders how much progress has been made. I mean, the marginalization is there, like you said. They no longer do overt things to you, or things that are not politically correct, but you still have the tactic of marginalization, and I can say from personal experience that it works. So, and you still have the inability of many members of society, white, to objectively make decisions concerning people of color. I'm talking about people that are in positions of power, of influence. They have an inability to objectively evaluate people of color, be they employees, be they applicants for a loan or for a business loan. They just can't do it. And that, that's at the crux of the problem here in this country.
Well, so in a lot of cases, particularly nowadays, when there are injustices,
Yes.
in the finale,
Yes.
when those injustices are done, in the finale, it's not about black nor white, it's about green.
Green. Mm-hmm.
Can we go green?
Green. Decisions are made. Yeah. I mean, the money. The money.
You only got 2 minutes left,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to thank you for coming. There is much I don't understand about what goes on in political matters.
Keep living.
That's what my mom used to always say, keep on living.
It's not just political, man, Jimmy. It's life.
For sure. Unfortunately, there are segments of society that, at this moment, are teaching their children
Mm-hmm.
to maintain the attitudes that create the problems we have to deal with.
Xenophobia, fear
Teaching them.
of the unknown.
Stay with it. Don't quit it. Those people are no good.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust those people.
But can we continue? That's a good thing to end on, because can we continue to perpetuate this and compete globally with countries like India,
For sure.
China, the European Union? Can we continue to perpetuate ideas like this
Exactly.
and have and continue the progress that we're going to have to make as a country? I don't think so.
I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot. A lot of people know more than they knew.
Well, hopefully
than
the progressive
what was
people will look at
going
this
on.
and make some
Yeah,
changes.
for sure. A dear friend of mine, Reverend H. Joseph Franklin, that used to pastor a church here, used to watch television and watch the news and listen to hear all these disastrous, dastardly things going on, and he would say, "Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus."
To that I'll say amen.
For Minority Focus, I'm Jimmy Moore.